Today we're going to be talking about the 50th issue of Swamp Thing. Oh wow, I got one person waiting already. Let me know if I sound good, look good, feel good, smell good. Oh, I know I smell good. So one out of what? Seven ain't bad. All right. Let's see. I'm just as normal stalling a little bit before I start talking about this. But this is one of my favorite single issues of all time. Look at that. We got all the super. Looks like I'm having some technical difficulties. Anybody in the audience? Anybody want to let me know if I'm doing okay? Oh, I got a thumbs up. Okay, so I'll take that as an okay. All right, so let me start all over again because this is driving me crazy. This is issue 50 of the Saga of the Swamp Thing. This is the second. This is the second series of Swamp Thing. The first one was the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson. Hey, Tony Dimes. Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It got caught up. Good to see you, Tony. Look good, sound good. I don't look as good as you. I don't look as good as you, Tony. I don't sound as good as you, but I'll take what I can get. Okay. All right. So, and focus. All right. Tough technical difficulties just threw off my groove like Emperor Cusco. All right. So, this is the anniversary issue. Issue 50. For those of you who may or may not know, Swamp Thing was created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson. I forget exactly what year, but in the dawn of the 70s. And there was a couple of swamp creature characters. There was the Heap. There was now it's going to drive me nuts, but there was another one. The Heap started in Airboy. And I think that was the first like swamp creature character. Solomon Grundy was kind of like a swamp creature, but not really. And Man Thing came after this. So Swamp Thing, I'm gonna say it's the second, but I'm sure that there was another one that I'm forgetting about. It was like a horror comic, and it was one of DC's better titles. I did not get the original series. I jumped on in this series at issue number 1, but I did not get the original series. And then in issue 19, Alan Moore took over, and I think it was Alan Moore's first American comic, and it was just a phenomenon. That comic went like from newsstand price to like $100, like within a month. It was like a phenomenon, and it just became like the biggest thing. And Alan Moore became like a rock star comic book ever since. And I got to say, people to this day are like, people today that are kind of like bashing on Alan Moore. I will not bash on Alan Moore. Never met the man personally. I think it's difficult to meet the man personally. I don't even think he has like a social media presence. And I know he's kind of a diva, so I don't want to meet him. But I love his work. He was, one of the British invasion comic book writers, and he just like turned the comic book world on its ears. He's also the author of the Watchmen, from Hell, which is probably no Swamp Thing is my favorite thing he ever wrote, but then From Hell is up there. There was a Johnny Depp movie that was completely different than the comics, loosely based on it. He did The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He did Promethea. He did all those America's Best Comics like Top 10 and Tom Strong. Oh my God, Tom Strong is so good. But the list goes on and on and on and on. The only thing I haven't read by him is I just got all 12 issues of Providence, which is like H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know why. I just got to read that all because that looks phenomenal. But anyway, he also did Cinema Purgatorio, which I did a showcase on, like one of my early showcases, a series that it looked bizarre, but man, did I really, really like that. There was a horror anthology series based on like a cursed movie theater. It was really, really good. I enjoyed that. Okay, so let's get to Swamp Thing. So Alan Moore took over Swamp Thing with issue number 19, and he just reinvented the character. He just reinvented the character. Now, Swamp Thing, for those of you who may or may not know, and if you watch the what was it, CW TV show? I forget which show. That show was mostly based on Len Wein and Martin Pascal's version of Swamp Thing. I think it might have gone into the Alan Moore Swamp Thing later on. But I was really, really impressed with how much that stuck to the pre-Alan Moore stories of Swamp Thing. I was like, wow, that was that, and they did a good job. I think I only watched the first season. It was hard to see the second season. As always, taking a sip of my delicious Tim Hortons. All right, so I got 3 people watching. How you doing? Can you announce yourselves? Just let me know who's watching. I'm just curious. So anyway, Swamp Thing was originally Alec Holland, and Alec Holland was like a botanist, and he was working on the biorestaurant formula. And what that was it was supposed to cause plants to grow really super fast and need less food and whatnot. So what it was supposed to be like a way to end world hunger and like turn deserts into paradises. And he was working in the Louisiana Bayou because he needed, the rare plant lives. Yeah, it's Tony. Tony's here. And so he's working secluded in the yeah, I already knew that. Thanks for coming, Tony. So he's working in Louisiana Bayou because he needs all the rare plant life and whatnot. And it's him and his wife Linda. Now I forget the guy's name, but a group of evil people. They want the formula because let's face it, it's gonna be worth billions. He won't surrender the formula. They try to steal the formula. They light him on fire. He gets dosed in his own biorestaurant formula, and he burns to death in the swamp. Linda dies. Alex dies, and he falls into the swamp, and the formula gets into his flesh and rebuilds him as the Swamp Thing. And that's his origin. And at first he can't talk, and he's just a pathetic in the classical sense of the term, pathos, meaning, we're supposed to feel bad for him, not pathetic in the modern sense. We're like, yeah, you smell, we don't like you. But it's supposed to evoke pathos. We feel bad for Alex. And it becomes a horror title. He goes out and he fights horror monsters. And he meets Anton Arcane, one of my favorite villains of all time. Anton Arcane is just so freaking petty. Anton Arcane has, destroyed his own body. And he's like a Dr. Frankenstein. And he's trying to steal Alec Holland's body because of this bioregenerative form. He just keeps regenerating. So he views it as an immortal body, and he wants it to live forever. And that's it. He doesn't really have anything monstrous about him other than his body. Like, it's not like he has superpowers. So he's like super strong and he can regenerate. His only weakness is, like, since he's made out of plant life, it is fire. So if he dries out and burns, it could hurt him up. So now it's going along. I thought the Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson stories were fine, absolutely good, great. And if that was the end of the series, it would have been a commendable, fun series to explore and read. Then Martin Pascal comes, and they reboot it, and I think it was a terrible. The first Swamp Thing movie came out because the cover had a photo of the movie, and that run was great. Martin Pascal, I think it was Yeats. The artist, that series was excellent. Unfortunately, the Alan Moore bright spotlight came and took the shine away from Martin Pascal. But Martin Pascal's series was excellent. So that was 18 issues. More coffee? Because it's Sunday morning, guys. Let's have some coffee, talk about comic books. What else do you want? And Martin Pascal wrote a wonderful series. I really do recommend him. Then issue number 19 came. Now, I don't know if Martin Pascal left and Alan Moore filled in the hole, or if they fired Martin Pascal to put in Alan Moore. I don't know. I don't know the inside baseball with that. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know that they fired Martin Pascal. I do like Martin Pascal. Great underappreciated writer. But Alan Moore came in. And what did they do? So Swamp Thing under Martin Pascal, it became like a grand conspiracy. The U.S. government with General Sunderland, they were all chasing after him because they wanted to extract this biorestorative formula from his cells, reverse engineer it. So he was always being chased and captured, and, corrupt generals in the U.S. government was trying to take him. And it was a good thriller. It was a monster comic and a conspiracy comic thriller. It was really good. Now they capture him, and Alan Moore takes over in issue 19. And they dissect him and they take him apart. They take it out of his organs, and you're like, what is going on? And they find out that he never was Alec Holland. So everything you knew about Swamp Thing was wrong. So they find out that Alex Holland died in the swamp. and the biorestorative formula and everything just, grew in the swamp, and it made a swamp creature that thought it was Alex Holland. So, they talked about how the planarian worms, they would be trained to run mazes, and then they would cut them in half, and then the pieces that regenerate, all the other pieces would have memories of going through the maze. So they're saying that there's precedent in nature of memories being transferred over to other bodies. And that's what happened. Alan Moore read about that, incorporated it, and now Alex, he never was Alec Holland. He was the Swamp Thing from the beginning. And that became like a thing. He was looking for Alex's bones, and he wants to bury him, put him to rest. So Alec Holland is in heaven with Linda. We know that because he sees him. He goes and actually visits him. And then Alan Moore goes on and explains that not only was he never Alec Holland, but the biorestorative formula was almost like a MacGuffin. It had nothing to do with his origin. The real origin is the earth itself, the green, the essence of all plant life, the collective unconsciousness of all plant life needs a champion from time to time. And you have to, like, one of the ingredients of creating is pretty much like the dominant life form dies in fire and in vegetation. So, and the reason why they did that was the first appearance of Swamp Thing, which I showcased earlier. It was in House of Mystery. Was it 82? And it was about a World War I pilot. So he was the first Swamp Thing that we know about. The first appearance of Swamp Thing. And then Alan Moore used that to say that there was other Swamp Things. And from time to time, there's always one living plant elemental on Earth as the champion of the green. And we don't know about him. He's like a cryptid. He hides, with this kind of body, he could hide. And so now he's getting more plant powers. He can regenerate. His body could die and his spirit could go across the globe, find a piece of vegetation and grow really quick. He could control plants now. He could cause plants to grow. He could, so he's almost like the king of all plant life. Not almost. He is. And then, of course, because of the success of that, and it is cool, man. It is so cool. And then because of all, the green is the collective unconsciousness of all plant life. Then there became the red, which is the collective unconsciousness of all animal life, which became the basis of Animal Man's powers. And then later on, they introduced the gray, which is the collective unconsciousness of all fungus. So what is it? Is that the three kingdoms? Is there? I remember as a kid there was the three kingdoms. There was plant, animal, and then there was, so there's four. There's like Minera and I don't know, I'm saying it wrong. But if anybody watching this, could you tell me what the three or four kingdoms of life are? I remember there was three when I was a kid, but then they inserted another one. So it was fungus, plant, and animal life, whatever. I think there's a fourth. I might be crazy. For all I know, there's 27. But anyway, so each of the kingdoms has its champion, and Animal Man became the champion of the red, and then Anton Arcane became the champion of the gray, and there you go. So and then when he wearies and retires, he goes to a place in Brazil, the Amazon rainforest, and takes root and becomes like a tree, and that becomes the parliament of trees. It's all the surviving old plant champions, and they retire there because there can only be one at a time. It takes so much power that if there was two active champions, then plant life would suffer. There wouldn't be enough green energy to produce two. So if you go there and retire, you surrender some of your power, and it goes to the next year. And it's really, really cool. I really like it. And okay, so now getting into this comic, a lot of background for this. Alan Moore is a complicated guy. Lacey, yeah, I love it. I just read these. Did you just read them for the first time? Because they are so good. They are so good. Something about Swamp Thing brings out the best in all authors. If I was to be given a comic book job, like, the comic book gods just say, "Hey, John, we're gonna give you could write any comic that you want," I would not pick Swamp Thing. I would just be too intimidated to follow up all these giants. Even the lesser Swamp Thing writers they just did something wonderful with this character, and I would not touch it with a 10-foot pole. I would definitely take somebody like without like a long storied career. So just rescue somebody from the flames and wreckage if I could. Enjoying my coffee, everybody. Let's take a sip. It's good to see you, Lacey. I haven't seen you in a couple of Sundays. So anyway, this is the culmination. So this is going to be the spoilers for a long story. Started from the beginning, just she had television. Started from the beginning, she just had television where I'm at this stage. I don't know what you mean. She just had television where I'm at in the stage. I'm a little confused by the comment. Could you elaborate? Or Abby? Abby just got the autocorrect. Yes. As an aside, my friend Dennis, he will just send Tefe. Okay, yes, Tefe is Swamp Thing and Abby's daughter. She just got television. Okay, I know where you are. She just had Tefe at that stage. Okay, yes. So Abby just had the baby. Okay, which is a crazy story that I won't get into yet because I could talk for an hour about the complications of that story. Oh man, and it had ramifications for like 10, 15, 20 years in comic book time. Alan Moore is so good. But anyway, I'll talk just a little side about autocorrect is my friend Dennis. He'll just send you crazy messages. Just I don't even want to repeat some of the crazy like just curse expletive nonsense. And then he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, John. Autocorrect." That's just like a running joke. Just whatever nonsense he feels like said, and then blames autocorrect. All right. So anyway, this is the culmination of like a almost like a 2 year story called the American Gothic. And in the American Gothic, John Constantine shows up for the first time, and John Constantine guides the Swamp Thing into his true history and his true purpose. Something is coming. Yeah, I know that game. So something is coming. Something bad is coming, and Swamp Thing needs to deal with it. He's the champion of the Earth. He's the champion of the Green. You know, everything needs to. He needs to learn how to use his abilities. He doesn't have time to discover him on time. So John Constantine, who's a mysterious British stranger at this point with like no backstory, just shows up, and all we know about Constantine is he's a manipulator. He knows magic, and he's a bastard, a troublemaker, and you know. I love John Constantine, and he got his own spin-off series called Hellblazer, which was a wonderful 300 issue series. And then he died, and then we never heard from that character again. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But anyway, so he was coach, and then this is him dealing with the end of the American Gothic. This is why he's trained in the use of his powers. About between Constantine and Swamp Thing, they're awesome, so cool. You're talking about them today. You're talking about the comics, right? You're reading the Hellblazer for the first time. Hellblazer is one of my favorite comics. So good. Oh my god, I really, really dig that. So let's look at this. This is issue 50, $1.25. What's this, 1986? So I was a junior in high school when this came out. Oh, okay. And I haven't opened this comic in years. Oh, before I open it, I'm gonna tell one silly story and then we'll get into this. Yes, okay. Oh, you read Constantine for the first time, I envy you. Oh, so good. So good. And you're reading Swamp Thing for the first time, I envy you. How old are you, Lacey, if you don't mind me asking? I'm just such. And are you reading them collected or are you getting floppies? All right. There's like an interview with Lacey. And Tony, are you familiar with these comics? But anyway, one last funny story about Swamp Thing, then we'll go inside. So this comic came out. I was, oh my God, was I just enthralled with this. Okay, I just couldn't stop talking about it. I would talk about this comic. You know that meme of the guy in the sporting event? He's got his hand on the woman's neck and he's just talking to her. The girl looks this. That's me talking about Swamp Thing with anybody. So that's what I was doing. So my parents went away. So I'm living in my parents' house. I'm a junior in high school, and my brothers and sisters, I got one, two, three. I got four older brothers and sisters, and they're having a party. So the house is just filled with people. I'm a high school kid, so my friends are over too. We're all drinking, and my grandmother is supposed to be babysitting us. Now my grandmother was like in her late 80s, early 90s at this point. 45 next month, and I'm not telling because you getting collected. That's fine. These are expensive. I don't care. You read them. Me, I'm a lunatic. I bought these when these came out. So you know what I mean. But all that matters is that you're reading and appreciating these. If you're not a collector like me, then read them and you're having a great time. So no, I don't hate it. I love the fact that you're reading these comics. So you're reading them online. You're reading them online. But that's fine. The light bulb just went off. So anyway, we're having a party. my grandmother's babies, but my grandmother was the worst. She'd be drinking with us and everything like that. Old Irish, May McNally. How's that for an old Irish name? And we're just having a party. And I just remember talking to this guy from Ireland. I don't know who knew him, whatever, but he was this redheaded guy. And we just drink. And I'm explaining to him the plot of this comic. Freaking guy from Ireland drinking at some stranger's house practically. He was a friend of a friend of a friend. And I got him cornered talking about Swamp Thing. And we were all drunk and everything. He's like, oh man, wow. Like, was he interested or was he just being polite? I don't know, but it's just funny. Poor guy from Ireland. He's like, yeah, I met some strange American who told me about Swamp Thing. And before I open it up, let's come over here to our coffee station. Okay, and we will fill up my coffee pot. Delicious Tim Hortons coffee. International now, because I can't do the spoon with one hand, and whenever I do this, I put in too much sugar. That looked like way too much. I can't handle a lot of sugar. Yes, my sugar thing is gross, but then again, I'm a disgusting human being. A little bit of half and half because I'm a slob. Gotta stir it. There we go. That's the color I like. And put it on. Look at this. John Con coasters. You see dice. I used to have like a little board game convention before COVID ruined all of that stuff. Then I moved, and now I got now I have John Con paraphernalia in a box in my garage. I used to sell it and everything to make up money for renting the room in the hotel. Alrighty, so now let's get to 21 minutes, and I didn't even open up the comic yet. So let's open Amazing Man. Raise your hand if you remember Amazing Man. I love this series. It was 12 issues. It was about Amazing Man. He was like mentally ill, and he just no powers or anything, but it was set in regular DC continuity, and he just walked around Brooklyn doing good deeds. And these like the side characters. I liked it. Okay. Let's look at the credits. So we got Alan Moore. I already talked about him. Steve Bissett. Steve Bissett draws all these insect-looking wiggly monsters. I just love the way he draws. But Rick Veitch and John Totleben. John Totleben is the inker. He just fills this all with such wonderful detail. And from what I remember, John Totleben was going blind. I think he's totally blind now. And I think at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, at this point, or maybe it was a little bit after this, right before he got taken off Swamp Thing, his vision was so poor that he could only see out of one eye, and he would literally get real close, like a little tunnel vision, and he would just ink a little bit at the time. So I don't think he could do the long compositions, but he could ink. And he just got slower and slower and slower. Poor guy, just an amazing talent. And Rick Veitch is just a freak. I did a comic called the One of my earlier showcases, which is just bizarre. I'm a big fan of Rick Veitch. I should bring. He followed up Alan Moore, and he made it different, but he made it his own. So here we got Cain and Abel. Look at this wonderful drawing. Just getting in close. John Totlben's inking it. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Steve Bissett. So this is the House of Secrets and House of Mysteries. They became famous in the Neil Gaiman, and people kind of associate them with the Sandman characters, but they were long-standing DC characters. They had their own comics, House of Mystery and House of Secrets, and they were like horror hosts for anthology horror comics. And let's look at the indicia, even though we know the year. It's 1986. 87. Just wonderful. And they are Cain and Abel. They are the as Neil Gaiman said, they became characters because they are the first characters. I don't know why Adam and Eve aren't in here because they're the first characters, but Cain and Abel and Cain is always killing Abel and being mean to him. See, they go up to the top of the thing, and then you're going to see him, he pushes down Abel. And what are they? From there, okay, here, Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, and here is all the Tana Wood, wife of I know I'm jumping around, guys, I'm excited. Wife of Wally Wood is the colorist, she's my favorite colorist, and it's because of the Swamp Thing series that made me. John Costanza, great letterer, with special thanks to Tom Mandrake. Look at that page. Holy moly. This just is Dead Man. So this is all the supernatural beings are gathered here to deal with this supernatural threat that the green pumped out Alec Hollid to champion, and then John Constantine trained him up, leveled him up to get his abilities in order so he could deal with whatever it is that's coming. Taking a sip. Hey, Phil, how you doing? You're new. Good to see you. Thank you, Phil. Where are you from, Phil? I read Sandman and the Dreaming for the first time about a year. Yeah, they were wonderful comics. Wonderful comics. Neil Gaiman gets on my nerves these days, but I'm not going to take anything away from my experience of reading the Sandman. Wonderful, wonderful comics. I haven't watched the show because, at the risk of sounding like an all right Nazi, I don't like race swapping. I don't like race swapping. Um, a character is a character is a character, and any deviation from the character is not that character. Sorry, you know. And the funny is Neil Gaiman is famous for saying, like, if I want to see a Batman movie and Batman is a detective in a trench coat who has a pet bat, then that's not Batman. So he understands changing a character from the comics to the annoys people, and then whatever. Less I said, the better. So anyway, a good to see you, Phil. Look at this detail in the swamp. So where is Swamp Thing? He's in limbo right now. He has the ability to send his spirit and travel. So that's one of his side powers as a champion of the green. And Dead Man is dead, so he's a spirit. So they're traveling into like the the nether realms to find out what is coming. And at this point, we don't know. And look at these word balloons. When he talks, it's supposed to be laborious and difficult for him to talk. And look, they're in hell right now, and all the demons are gathering on the march. And he's like, what is going on? So Dead Man always acts like a passive observer. Dead Man has the ability to like possess a host, and then he can interact with the material world. But right now, he doesn't need that because Swamp Thing is, they're in I forget if they're in limbo or in hell right now, just dealing with the all of these creatures gathering for the first time. Heroes Against Hunger. I've only watched the first spot on, really, except for the swamp of the library. Yes, and oddly, the Raven. Funny thing about Matthew the Raven is from this. Martin Pascoe made up Abigail Kane and her husband. At the time, she was Abigail Cable, but she was Abigail Arcane. And, no, that was Bernie Wrightson that made him up. And her husband, Matt Cable. Matt Cable died, and he became Matthew the Raven. So Matthew the Raven is from the series, and the librarian, Lucian, is based on a historical character. Lucian is the first librarian of the Library of Alexandria, and when he died, he became the Sandman's Morpheus's Raven, and after a while, he was promoted and given as the librarian of the Library of Dreams, and they changed it to Lucille so a Greek male, a Greek European male became a black woman in the TV show for no reason whatsoever. And they say the same thing. Who's the best actor? Who's the best? So you're telling me that the best actor to play a European male was an African woman? I don't think you tried too hard there, and you're not selling it. So that opens the door for, I think the best actor to play Shaka Zulu is going to be a 5'2" Japanese woman. She was the best actress. Whatever. What do I haven't watched the show because I'm mad at that stuff. But look at the detail in the eye over here, the fact that John Toddleman was going blind. So now that they're just talking, here's John Constantine. John Constantine sent them on what they called the American Gothic. The American Gothic, he went all around the country to basically urban legends and monsters in America. And it was just cool. So he explored vampires, werewolves, the Winchester House, and all of these cool stories that were standalones on their own, but they had an overarching arc of just basically giving him experience points to level up so he could deal with the impending doom. And so now they're in I forget whose house this is, but they're in this creepy old house, and it's all like the magic users of DC. So we got Sargon the Sorcerer, Zatanna, John Constantine, and they're all having a seance. We got Mento from the Doom Patrol, sitting around this table. I can't remember his name. I think that's Zatanna. I think that's Zatan. That's Zatanna's father. Jeez. And then we got the demon Etrigan. Look at that. And this is the first time Etrigan started rhyming. So Alan Moore was the one who created him as the rhyming demon. And what's he doing? He's armoring up. He just takes a scorpion and sticks it on his head as head armor. Mento has always had mental problems. This helmet was like eating his brain from the inside out. Look at Etrigan. He's looking very feral, feline, and he's just armoring up, taking all these demons and everything, just sticking them on his head, and getting ready for the battle. And he's like looking forward to it. He's enjoying this conflict that's coming up. He's just like total chaos, going through hell again. And look, he just going out to battle. And I'm skipping the ads because I'm just so excited about this. Angel Love. Oh my God, I forgot about this. So an 8-issue series about the troubles and triumphs that make us all heroes. And they don't have the creative team. Man, did I make fun of this series. Look at this. Cocaine, whimsical, and yet not all that you expect. I made fun of this when this came out. And I always call him my comic pusher, Larry, who owned the comic book store where I was working at the time. He was like, no, you got to get this. It's so good. You got to support weird comics, And keep in mind, DC was on top of its game at this point, so they could put out freaky little, goofy Archie cocaine comics, and because they were making so much money, a rising tide floats all boats. So I don't know. I get so mad. Like right now, Marvel, DC make Superman, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Thor, make them great sellers. Then put all your weird little pride comics on this, But when you make them all the focus of whatever, you're just killing comics. But what do I say? So, of course, they're all gathered, dead men. And then who shows up? Dr. Fate. Of course, Dr. Fate shows up. He's the Doctor Strange of DC. So now, all the warriors are assembling. Look at this freaky guy. All the warriors are assembling. The forces are making their appearance. And they're all like in awe. The Phantom Stranger. The Phantom Stranger shows up. Now, the Phantom Stranger, for those of you who do not know, is a stranger. Like, nobody knows his origin. Nobody knows anything about him. Just taking a sip of coffee. And I love this character. He was another one that was like a horror host. I've tried reading American Gods. I cannot believe how bad it is. Oh, Pete Rock's here. Hey, Pete. Yeah, I got a copy of it. And I've soured on Neil Gaiman because of, like, the way he reacted to people honestly getting upset with the race swaps in Sandman. People can get upset with changes in their comic books. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Comic book collectors are prickly pears. I've read Sandman since the first issue. I picked it up off the stands, and I've loved it. I've talked about it. I've been like an evangelist about it. I got my wife to read it, and she doesn't really read too many comics. And when they made the show, and I saw that one of the main characters, my wife carves guy at Halloween for every couple of years, she would dress up as Death, and I would do whatever costume, and she would do Death, and she would do the makeup and everything, and look like Death, and it was fun, and now it's different. It's different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's different. And comic book fans take that to heart. Like if Superman movie comes out, because this is what I said to Neil Gaiman, and he basically called me an alt-right Nazi. Death isn't a real person. And Death is black and white. She's, two-toned. She's black as black could be, her hair and her clothes, and her skin is white, alabaster. So it's not a matter of race, because nobody is white like alabaster. Same with Sandman. And that's the two colors, just like Superman is red and blue, just like Captain Marvel is red and yellow, just like the Fantastic Four are blue and black. And then to take black and white and put it on TV, and now it's black and black, it's different. We have a paper two-dimensional character. Superheroes are defined by their colors. Spider-Man is red and blue. If Spider-Man was in the movies and he's yellow and green, that's not Spider-Man. If the Hulk, who's purple and green, is in the movies and he's red and yellow, that's not the Hulk. And that's what I'm saying. That's not Death. Not because of a black woman's playing her. She could be in makeup. I got no problems with that. Gamora is not really green. If she's the best actress, why didn't they make her look like the character? That's what got me mad. And that's what I explained. It has nothing to do with race. I don't know. She's probably a wonderful person. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. She's probably a phenomenal actress. I haven't seen her portrayal yet. But she doesn't look like the character. She doesn't look like the character. You can't just take Spider-Man and make him purple and green and say that that's Spider-Man. That's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man's red and blue. Hulk is purple and green. These are comic book characters, and they need to stay true to their colors, because for the most part, comic book characters only have like two colors. Like that's Etrigan. Etrigan is red and yellow. You can't make him mauve and teal. That's not Etrigan. I cheated on the Phantom Stranger. I googled who he was. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. So the Phantom Stranger. Let me get back to the Phantom Stranger. He may or may not be an angel. He may or may not be Metatron. He may or not be the wandering Jew. He may or may not be, a reformed whatever. And they did a secret origin issue of him, and they gave like 5 different origins, and they still never told us who the definitive was. But he was a host of his own anthology mystery series. Yes, it goes back to being the caretaker of the character. Yes, but the thing is, Neil Gaiman is the caretaker of death. So if he says it, it's cool. But he's neglecting the feelings. See, it's Netflix. Netflix told him it needs to be more diverse. Let's be realistic, okay? Netflix told Neil Gaiman that Sandman needs to be more diverse, and then so they put in up 2 black characters. Now, one of them was based on a historical European, and one of them was the main character. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. The race doesn't really matter. So then why didn't you make Sandman black? Because you didn't have the balls to do that. You wanted a black character, but you knew that brand recognition was important. So you did a secondary character, who only shows up 5 times, 6 times in the whole series. So stick to your guns. Is diversity important? Then make Sandman a disabled, fat Lizzo in a wheelchair, because representation and diversity points. But they didn't do that. A writer who said they are boring. Yes, Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil was the editor who said that. And when Denny O'Neil died in 2016, coincidentally, is the end of comic books. It's the end of an era. Denny O'Neil said he was the custodian of Batman. Good memory, Pete. Pete's my number 1 fan. Pete loves me. So back to the Phantom Stranger. So he was like a host, and DC was big on that at the time. Cain and Abel, the Phantom Stranger, and then these hosts became characters in their own right. So here he comes showing up, and what are these circles? These are archangels. They are just spheres. Like I love that. It's okay, Pete. It's okay. Back to the Swamp Thing. It's Sunday Comics. We got time. We got time for rants. We got time. So these are supposed to be archangels. So Metatron, who may or may not be Metatron. So the Phantom Stranger is like super spiritually powered, but he doesn't really get involved. He's one of I hate that trope, but I like the Phantom Stranger. So he's I'm a hypocritical and conflicted about him. I love that super powerful, all-knowing guy, but I always hate the super powerful, all-knowing guy who doesn't say anything. So, so now Swamp Thing, so the forces of good are gathering, and Etrigan is gathering the forces of evil. And then in the middle, we have these magic user beings all having a seance. And what are they doing? They're transferring their power to the good guys, so they're not there physically in battle, but they're sending magically. And all these evil, we got Abagazer, Wrath, and Ghast, the 3 demons who coincidentally were in my very first DC comic that I'm still looking for. I can't seem to find it, but I remember getting a comic. It was late at night. We were driving someplace. We stopped at a 7-Eleven. And my parents gave me this comic because, I was already sleeping for a couple hours, but we were still driving. So and so they knew that I would just sit there with that little light on, just studying this comic. And it had these 3 in them. And for the life of me, I don't remember which comic that was. And here it comes. That is the thing that they're dreading. And they're like, what? So it's just rising out of the ectoplasm. And they're like, so they're seeing it for the first time. Even the demons are like, what is it? Mento is describing it. He's the one that's seeing what's going on. Poor guy. He's mentally disturbed. He didn't want to become a superhero, but he was in love with Rita Farr. So he Steve Dalton, he purchased this helmet that gave him superpowers. So he's not even like born to be a superhero like everybody is. The guy just did it because he was in love with Rita Farr, and he's like, I got to be a superhero, otherwise she's not going to love me back. So just think of like Jeff Bezos bought a superpowered helmet to win the love of Megan Fox or something like that, and now he's thrust as being the focus of this seance to focus in on what they're seeing in the netherworlds. And each Swamp Thing's like, what's going on, dead man? Who knows what Dr. Fate is seeing? And it's just rising. It's just rising. Yes, this is a pretty intense. So Lacey knows what's going on, and they're like, so what is it? What is it? What are they seeing? What are they seeing? And look at Steve Dalton's face. He's freaking out. These guys are like trying to keep calm, keep the circle. So we got all of these real DC characters, and poor the mentally disturbed one is the only one with clarity to see what's going on. Alamo is just amazing, and then Etrigan is just loving the chaos. He's unfettered by the morality of Jason Blood. If you remember or don't know, Jack Kirby created the demon, and Jason Blood was like a wizard in Arthurian times who was cursed. I think it was by Morgan Le Fay to be the house for the Steve. So it's kind of like Ghost Rider. So he was like DC's Ghost Rider. So Jason Blood in whatever moments of weakness, horror or whatever would transform into the demon, and the demon's really a bad guy, just like Ghost Rider. Zarathos was really a bad guy, but it's the human host that tempers him. So I think Hell was afraid of this guy, and they sent him into a human to keep him out. Keep him under control, or keep him out of the way. So now he's unfettered by Jason Blood in basically hell, just like riding demons and enjoying the destruction. He doesn't care if the world ends. He's total chaos. He's just loving it. Look at him over here with all these things on his face, just smashing other demons just because they're hesitating. Like, we are going to fight. So now he rushes into this thing that's arising, and he's like, Etrigan's leading the charge. He's leading the charge. He goes in and look at Mentos just freaking out. He's just freaking out, and it gets, there's Zatanna and Etrigan is swallowed up by this thing. So this thing is just growing and getting bigger. It's like a big black tumor, and look at even Etrigan is like, the most cocky, the most arrogant of all things is freaking out. He can't deal with it. Mentos like, no, I don't want to watch. Etrigan is gone. They're just like, he's gone. And this thing, little thing, it's now speaking directly to him. Little thing, are you in me? And I have a very great need. Before light, I was endless without name or need or name. Then light came. Witness the otherness. I suffered my first knowledge of self, and all contentment fled. Tell me, little thing, what am I? And he's like, your name is evil. Absence of God's light, his shadow partner, locked in endless fight. The light, I can't even read this through my phone. The light is to be endless. Then, little thing, you have taught me fatalism. You have taught me inevitability, but you have not taught me what I needed. You are not the thing that I need. And he just tosses him out. And that's it. He's defeated. One of the most powerful beings, pure rage, pure chaos. He charged in like a superhero, and then was just defeated. And they're like, it's moving. It just defeated Etrigan. He's just, and he's like, I need to know where Alex is. So John Constantine is just like, where is Alex? Where's the Swamp Thing? And they're like, it's just like The Exorcist. Things are going crazy. Things are getting tossed, and like, don't break the circle. Don't break the circle. And he's just like, the darkness, it's focusing on us. It just noticed us. And they're like, don't break the circle. Don't break the circle. And then Sargon's just like, it's getting a little hot in here. Does anybody ever notice it's getting hot in here? And boom, he just bursts into flame. And he's dead. Just because the thing noticed them. You know what I mean? And they have to hold on to his burning hand, because if they let go, they're all going to burst into flame. He's like, don't let go. So look at that. The hands are burning. And that's Sargon the Sorcerer. I think he debuted in Action Comics #1 with Superman, and he's dead. And for all I know, he's still dead. I haven't seen him around, but that doesn't mean anything with magicians. And he's like, we got to continue doing this to the last man if needed be. So now this seance is now Russian roulette. Who's the next one to die? So now we got to stop this thing. Look, this darkness is just growing. It's just growing. And now Dr. Fate, he's, taking out demons that are just in the way, because Dr. Fate is ultimate power. For those of you who may or may not know, Dr. Fate is the Doctor Strange of the DC world. He preceded Doctor Strange by like a decade or so. And he's Kent Nelson, archaeologist, and he found this helmet of Nabu the Wise. And he put the helmet on, and it just like, I love this concept. That's why I like Dr. Fate a little bit more than Doctor Strange, although I love both of them. He puts this helmet on, and it like downloads ultimate sorceress magical powers. And he loses his personality. He becomes the avatar of Nabu the Wise. Nabu the Wise was like an ancient Egyptian magician at first, and then he got upgraded to a Lord of Order. So he basically becomes the avatar of this godlike being. And what can he do? plot. He could do whatever is needed to do because whatever. So he's like more powerful than Doctor Strange. And then he went through like periods of time where he couldn't deal with all these images in his brain. Very Lovecraftian. That's why I love him. So he made a fashioned another helmet with like you could see his jaw and mouth. So he only got like lesser power. So he retained some of his personality. So here he is. He's fighting off all these demons, and they're like, "What, Doc? You didn't notice?" And this growing black darkness tumor enveloped him. Little thing, little thing, you are in me, and I have a great need. In this strange place of light and order and names, I have been named evil. Yet naming is not enough. I must know my nature. I must know my purpose. Tell me, little thing, what is evil? He's like, evil? Evil is a quagmire. And he's absolute, you know. Evil is a quagmire of innocence, of ignorance, that would drag us back to the climb to as we climb towards the immortal light. A vile, wretched thing to be scraped from the sandals like like dromedary soil. He goes, so I am so low, and then he that you serve is so high that there could be no possible of respect between us. Little thing, you have taught me contempt. It is not the answer that I require. And he just tosses out Dr. Fate, and Dr. Fate is defeated. Oh, man. That's Shakespeare to me, guys. I get the chill. A dead man, because this thing is growing and is expanding. So Dead Man goes and grabs Dr. Fate to get him out of here, and Swamp Thing is just like, what do we do? We can't defeat this thing. He's like, the Spectre and I, we've contemplated this thing for decades, eons. Now the angels are coming, and the angels are standing in front of him, and like, look at this. They hold on to the smoldering dead hand. The seance is still lending power. They need to know what's going on. Poor old Steve Dalton is freaking out, and like, what's going on? And like, what's going on? She's like, John, it's getting warm in here. Oh my God. And so Zatanna, she's about to explode and die. And her father, Zatara, is like, no, I will not allow it. And what does he say? He says it backwards. That's the thing, that they use backwards magic. They're a race of like magicians, homo magi, and they say things backwards. So he just says, take it. I can't read it backwards through the phone, but he basically says, take me instead. And he's like, it's too late. Your father is gonna die. And boom, he just explodes. And she's like, oh, my father. Oh my. So she was about to die. She was the weakest link. Goodbye. Like that TV show. But the father claimed that spot instead, and he dies right in front of her, and she's just like, damn you, John, you just killed my father, you caused this. Every John Constantine, that is his thing. They hinted that they had a love affair behind this. She's like, I never should have gotten involved with you just killed my father. And he's like, get mad at me later, we got stuff to. And that's what John Constantine does. He's a bastard. He's very Machiavellian. He's a good guy, but he's a good guy without morality. Like, Batman goes out of his way to save you. John Constantine, he's like, everybody's pawns in his chess game, so he keeps himself separate from people, like, because he knows sooner or later he's gonna have to use them. He's like the ultimate manipulator. He's a fascinating character. So now these are the archangels that are just getting, they're colliding into this thing and collapsing. So the archangels are being defeated, and the Phantom Strange is like, what do we do? And boom, what is this? What is that? It's the Spectre. And he's like, oh no. And what is the Spectre? Spectre was Jim Corrigan. He was a cop in the 30s, and he was killed by a criminal. And the Spectre was resurrected by God, and he became the Spectre. So, he's got like the same origin as Batman. And now he is the wrath of God on Earth. And at first he was just like a ghost superhero, passed through walls and everything. And he's just like in the 50s, everybody, like the Blue Beetle, everybody just got super, super amazing, undefinable powers. And then he got to be so powerful that people lost interest in him. Like he would just point at things and it'd explode and whatever. It's you got to have limitations. So this is what, to me, one of DC's first realizations, that when things get too powerful, people lose interest. So they kind of made him like he had limitations. He could only use his powers in certain ways. God made like poetic. So like if you were like a rapist, he would punish you, and then you would get violated in whatever way. So that's the way but now he's unfettered. He is God on Earth. He's God's representative. He is the ultimate being in all of DC Comics. And he's just looking at this thing. And he's just like, oh. His thoughts are, it's like a challenge. He's like, something that I could finally use my unfettered might and attack. And what does he do? He just grabs it. So he increases his size and he just grabs it. He's just wrestling it with it. And then he looks. There's other towers coming down. He's like, huh? What's going on? And he just gets enveloped by it. So he's grabbing one of the towers, and then the other towers just grab him, and he's just like, little thing, and it's called the Spectre. Little thing. My hunger for understanding grows larger as my patience dwindles. Share my question. Shall my question be answered, or shall I snuff out the light and be done with the anguish its presence causes me? He's like, no, I forbid you by the voices that speaks in all things. So he's the voice of God, It does not speak in me. It does not speak in me. In me, there's only hateful nagging of insoluble query. Tell me, little thing, what is evil for? And he says, evil exists only to be avenged, so that others may see that what ruin comes from opposing the great voice, and cleave more wholly to its fall, to its will, fearing its retribution. And what of the tortured souls I endured, unable to breach this maddening brilliance, and unable to approach this maddening brilliance? And what at the pain of the woke in me? What of the pain that awoke in me? Jeez, I can't even read. Do they not demand retribution? Little thing, you have taught me only vengeance. And boom, he called the Spectre. Be gone, so that I may ponder my solitude. And there it is. Look at that. Look at that image. Oh my God, little kid me, that this was drama, man. I didn't need Shakespeare. I didn't need, literature. This was literature. And there he is. He's just, and this is why I'll always love Alan Moore. And he's like, the Spectre just got defeated. He's like, what about the Swamp Thing? What is the Swamp Creature doing? And he's like, who cares about the Swamp Creature? What is he going to do? The Spectre just got defeated. And then Alec, he just walks up and he willingly goes into it. And here we start again. Little thing, you have come to me willingly and without wrath. In this extraordinary place, you are extraordinary. What have you to offer me? I have nothing. I came in resignation. Whatever you are, I cannot fight you, but I cannot stand and watch. Then will you answer my question, little thing? Will you tell me the purpose of evil? I cannot. I am not the one you seek. I have tried to make sense of that darkness, and I have failed. I have seen evil and cruelty and randomness with which it ravages innocent and guilty alike. I have not understood it. I asked the Parliament of Trees. The Parliament of Trees is his order, his magic order, whose knowledge is older and greater than mine. They seem to insist that there was no evil, but I have seen evil, and their answer was incomprehensible to me. And yet, they spoke of aphids eating leaves, bugs eating aphids, themselves constantly devoured by the soil, feeding the foliage. They asked where evil dwelled within the circle, and I told them to look into the soil. The black soil, the rich in foul decay, yet glorious life springs from it. The horror dazzling, the florences of life. In the end, all decays in the book. I can't even read. In the end, all decays to the same black humus. Perhaps evil is the humus, for whom all virtue would decry, and perhaps it is from that dark, sinister loam that virtue grows strong. I do not know, and I do not know what they mean. I see. Little thing, I sense great and final end approaching. I would be alone. Leave freely as you came. So he walks out. And they're just like the Swamp Thing. He just walked out of that creature unharmed. What happened while he was inside? Doesn't matter. Didn't do any good. The horror's rolling on towards heaven. So this thing is going to challenge heaven itself. And like all the demon etrogens getting up smoking, and the Spectre is weeping. Steve Dalton is freaking out as this thing, it approaches basically God, and he's like, oh my God, I can't see this. I can't see. He's like, no, keep looking. He's like, I can't look at this. I can't see this. Look at his eyes. The light, the dark, they're going to fight. Everything will be destroyed. And then we realize it was a hand. So Spectre was just grabbing the tip. Oh my God, when that was revealed to be, the other towers were the other fingers. Oh man. And here comes the hand of light. What's going on? What's going on? Yin yang. I don't understand. And boom, it's over. The two hands grasped. And look at him. He's just insane. He's just insane. We got Mr. 13, Dr. Occult. They're all just sitting around the survivors with the two corpses. And it's like, it's over. And he's just like, a fingernail. I said it. It was a fingernail. And he's like, big guy, you awake? They're all in the aftermath. And just everything. It's just like death and destruction. And they realized that they were both two hands of the same being, yin yang. And we were just forced to witness this. So what was going on? It was basically like the rebalancing of the force. And he's going back to the earth, the Swamp Thing. But if not for the Swamp Thing, it was going to destroy. When it grabbed the hand of the light, it was going to battle it. And that battle was going to destroy everything. But because the Swamp Thing had taught him that everything, is nature and balance, they accepted each other. And basically, both sides gained an understanding of each other. And there we go. So, and then, of course, Cain pushes Abel off a cliff. And it starts all over again. Look at these letter pages, Swamp Things, letters. And then Lords of the Ultra Realm. Oh, my God, I love that. Here we got the Swamp Thing anniversary issue that I just showed, Firestorm, and M&M's. So there you go. This is one of my favorite issues of all time. It was the culmination of like a 2-year, picaresque exploration of like occult, mystical of DC Comics and American Legends. I just absolutely love this. What did you guys think? I got 4 people. I got 5 likes. Anybody stick with me through this? My long-winded. Because my enthusiasm show through. I absolutely love this. Even if you didn't like the story, even if it was mystical mumbo jumbo for you, I'd be real curious what RJ from the Fourth Age has to say about this. Being that he's very thoughtful and philosophical. I don't think he's a big fan of Alan Moore. I love Alan Moore, and I think Alan Moore is a contrarian, meaning whatever you say, he's going to say the opposite because he's a jerk like that. I know he's a diva. I know he grew up as a spoiled brat. He fully admits it. And I think he's like, I'm a communist, but I don't think he really is. I just think he says stuff to shock people. Whatever. I bet you right now he's like, I'm a Trump supporter. He probably not, but you know what I'm saying. He's just whatever it goes against the common thought of the time. He'll say the opposite. Anybody want to chime in? 57 minutes of me talking. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Anybody want to say anything? Pete, what you think? Lacey, I already know, likes this. So what do you guys have to say? Anything? Bueller? Yeah, I love this. I'm a big fan of Swamp Thing. And I think Alan Moore went to issue 65, and then Rick Veitch took over. And whereas Alan Moore made this a very mystical, spiritual comic, Rick Veitch made it a sci-fi comic. So I like that he took it in another direction. And man, did he do a good job. There's so many gems in this series, so many good comics. I could pretty much I could dedicate this channel just to these Alan Moore Swamp Things and just do every issue. And I would never get bored. But there you go. All right, I've been talking for 58 minutes. Anybody have anything to say? If not, forever hold your peace. And all right, I'll bab. Oh, gotta find out. This was all right. So there you go, everybody. I got nothing else to say about this other than I love this. Get this in a collected edition. I think it's called The American Gothic. Where does Matt? Where does Matt what? Matt. You mean Matt Cable? Where does Matt become the Raven? He's already the Raven in Sandman. But he's already the Raven in Sandman. And there's an aside where they say it, but they never actually show him becoming the Raven. He gets redeemed in one of these. Like they see him that he's trying to be a good guy. And then Neil Gaiman just, I think as an homage to Alan Moore series, just took him and made Matt the Raven as Matt Cable. I think, I forget where, maybe in The Dreaming or something, that they say he announces that his name was Matt Cable. And So it never says it in the Swamp Thing. It says it in Sandman somewhere. I'll look it up. I'll try to find the exact reference, and I'll make a community post about it. All right. So there you go, everybody. Thank you for coming. I can't believe I talked for an hour. That was fun. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. This Wednesday, I'm going to be talking with Sam Healy. He's a board game personality. And, you know, I met Sam Healy a few times. He's a great guy, and I love board games. So this Wednesday's live chat will probably be more about board games, but check it out. Check out Sam. He's a great guy. All right, I'll see you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you guys. I appreciate everybody. I can't believe I made it like over 500 subs. Everything's so fun. I can't believe that all these like Mike Barron and people like that want to talk to me. Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm having so much fun. Thank you guys. I don't know what else to say. I could ramble on, and as you saw me, I already drank like 3 cups of coffee, and I'm zooming. And I got to go do lawn work. So thanks a lot, everybody. Bye bye.